what happened?
Oh, I bet you were trying to cross the road. The really big long one. Same as us. And that crystal thief over there.
Hello.
She's just a bit weird. It's best to ignore her, I'd say.
Oh, okay, sure. But like, what am I meant to do?
Well, remember the guy at the gate told us, cue the flashback.
Well, well, here you are, the chosen. And they say you volunteered for this too. Right, well, it's my misfortune to let you know what to do. And all I'll say is, it's a good ruddy job they lock that gate before we get to town is. As I see it, that road there, that stretches out for miles and miles and miles. And you lucky pilgrims get to take the wagon down it. At the very end there should be a city. In the unlikely event that any life remains, it's up to you to let us know about it. Now, every year I lay out a nice little table of supplies for you pilgrims, see over there. But most importantly, there's the crystal. Pop that in the engine of the wagon and it'll do the rest. Pilgrims only get 1 crystal per trip, so you'll have to find more when this one runs out. There's plenty of stops along the trip, and I heard there's even a merchant out there that likes to take pity on pilgrims. Final thing, you'll be taking a pigeon. Let that little guy go when you reach the end of the road and not before. Then we'll know there's something out there worth checking. I'm sure you know, but well, I'll tell you anyway. We've never, not once, heard back from a single pilgrim. Oh, there's plenty of nastiness out there. So do mind your step. Okay, I think that's it. Now, get a move on.
Pilgrim is an incredible game, and I honestly mean that. At first glance, it may seem like an off-brand Lethal Company if it decided to do an array of drugs shaped like Skyrim, which is a fair assumption, but it, in my opinion, exceeds these expectations by a significant margin. I've played many games like Lethal Company and Content Warning, primarily because of a void of games that I can play in modern years, thanks modern game industry. But there seemed to be something that stopped me from truly enjoying either of those games. I'm not sure if it was the arcadey nature of the repetitive gameplay, by the design of course, the community, or even the laissez-faire attitude towards lore, or lack therefore of. This would not prove to be an issue with Pilgrim. My first foray into the world of Pilgrim was kickstarted by the machinations of my friend, who messaged me, saying that he found a cool looking game that he saw Schlatt play, and that he thought looked fun. I've lacked a game to play with my friends that isn't Valorant, and trust me, after 3 years of consistent Valorant, I think I'd choose to play watching paint dry with friends if it took me away from the hell that Hardstuck Silver was. So the next day, me, him, and my girlfriend had all installed it and were ready to play. And did we play? What followed was 2 hours that seemed to melt by, like I had been slipped some unnamed hallucinogenic. I slipped into some amalgamation of a northern accent with some semblance of Asian at some point. I don't know what I was on. As giant creatures chased us, weird flesh things charged us, and the darkness whispered in our ears. It was fantastic. Honestly, some of the most fun I have ever had while playing a video game in recent years. It was after that session that spurred me to make this video, and you will see some footage from it dispersed throughout this video to accentuate some of my points. Now, to address what this video is going to be about, I'm going to break down the mechanics of Pilgrim, talk about them, and attempt to dissect them to come to some semblance of a conclusion as to why exactly Pilgrim is so fun, and maybe even attempt to come up with some possible improvements that could be made to make the game even better. So, without further ado, let us get into the video, and first look at the... The gameplay loop in Pilgrim is deceptively simple, staying true to the games that it was inspired by. You are a pilgrim, a stout human. You run weird, walk even weirder, and wear masks that don't help you look any less strange. Starting the game being sent out from your village, I wonder why of how we look, that you called home for your entire life, all you have to your name is a wagon. However, fortunately, the wagon appears to be a relic of a bygone era, being able to be propelled by the energy given off by crystals, and it just so happens that you fortunately start with one. Unfortunately, these things last about as long as the dodgy batteries my dad would get me in a 30-pack from Pound Stretch and from my Xbox 360 controller. But the enigmatic creators of the wagon seem to think through this eventuality, having two pushing positions so you can still propel the little wagon through the ocean of forest ahead of you. Looking outside of the functions designed to move us along, the wagon also comes equipped with 3 chalk sticks, perfect for inscribing arcane arts into the ground, and a mask that looks eerily similar to the ones that our player characters wear. I'm sure that has no relation to anything and that none of this is used for any profane rituals that can bring back the dead. Not. Eerily specific guessing aside, the wagon is also equipped with various equipment designed to help anyone during exploration, at least if you want to see, with there being torches and lanterns. There is also a door that can be closed by a lever, and a ladder leading to the roof. On the roof is the aforementioned pigeon in the opening. He's called Zanzibar, and the option to free him is something you can do, even though it doesn't do anything. But personally, I don't see how he doesn't just clip through the bars as the collision isn't set up properly, but I don't know, maybe that's just me. That is all of the features contained within the Passion Wagon. I'm sorry. But you better get comfy, as this wagon serves as one of the 2 constants of our pilgrimage, serving as our base and being the safest place to be at any given time. This is debatable. No, it isn't! As for the second constant, I shall address that in a while. But that brings us to the actual bread and butter of the game. As the wagon moves through the never-ending forest, as the number at the front of the wagon inexorably ticks up, you will eventually discover something. Whether it be an abandoned town or a long-forgotten crypt, you come across something, and with that, Pilgrim enters its second gameplay phase. If the first stage is the traveling section, then this part can be called the exploration phase, as you, and any friends if you aren't a loner, descend into the depths of the ruins that lay before you. This is where the gameplay most resembles other games of the genre that you may be familiar with, like Lethal Company or Content Warning. Equipped with 5 item slots, although at least one will likely be used up for the privilege of seeing, you must scour the ruins for treasure, finding items like wine glasses, large vases, giant flesh things that charge you, or jewelry. Wait, that doesn't sound quite right. I'll describe the gameplay here more, but first here are some clips from that aforementioned 2-hour-long gameplay session.
Ryan left.
What a bastard. What the fuck? He returns!
Oh, the depths of hell are not kind to thou. That we do. Oh.
Oh! Oh my god! There's something shiny that's bad that is chasing you.
I swear to God, I saw something back there.
Wow, that. Why would you run? Well, the thing is, there comes a time in everyone's life where you have to look at, like, what the fuck is that? What the fuck? The game design on play here is like they looked at all the other popular games of the same genre and cranked both the funny parts and the scary parts to 11, featuring some jump scare audio that will blow both my eardrums out, but also nearly kill me with how funny it can be. But enough slobbering over the game, back to mechanics. One of the features that I am unsure about is the ease to which it is to keep light going if you know what you're doing. This can be achieved by using a lit torch to light the torches on the walls, which, if lit, can be used to reignite any torch infinitely. This in isolation doesn't impact the experience too heavily, but the sheer quantity of torches inside basically every dungeon turns the finite lifespan of torches from an actual resource that must be managed, lest you be stranded alone with not even the light to keep you company, into just a game of remembering to click E on a wall. It's not a massive complaint, but I thought I would address it. Moving on from the negatives and instead returning to the positives I experienced, the enemy variety and types must be praised. Fitting in with the heavily medieval English folklore-inspired themes that permeate every corner of the game, all of the enemies feel both thematic and terrifying. From purely within the 2 hours of gameplay that first introduced me to the game, there were fleshy abomination that walked on all fours slowly until they charged at you suddenly, capable of shooting you. Good job, me in the script. Figures wreathed in flame that only move when not being observed. Giant, almost naked brutes that charge at you and assault you once they reach you. Not in that way. Not to even mention the lesser enemies of bundles of spiders that drop on you, obscuring your vision, only being able to be stopped by the purifying embrace of flame, to even the lesser spirits that dwell in the dark, floating around until they see you and attempt to bewitch you, likewise being able to be dispelled by flames. Speaking of theme, whilst the locations are mostly of the same archetype, either being of the inside of a cave or the inside of some grand labyrinth, their adherence to what you would expect from the locations is also integral to crafting the atmosphere the game provides. The world that you find these abominations in is half of what makes the scares scary. Turning a cramped corridor in a never-ending labyrinth, the torch about to run out, only to find the flame-ridden body of the one who moves when not observed. The last thing you ever see as the torch drains to nothing is the shift of flame, and then nothing. Additionally, it would also be criminal not to mention the incredible audio design. Whilst needing some tuning in terms of how you hear other players, as at times it can prematurely fade people out of earshot, whilst in the depths of the dungeons, it is paramount to the experience. Being able to palpably feel the layers of post-traumatic stress disorder being heaped upon our poor hapless pilgrims as you watch his trap sheen one of his friends clean in half. The world getting distorted as the bisected corpse lies at his feet, his isolation only compounded by the cave sounds surrounding him. But that's enough about the dungeons. Let us say that our team of pilgrims managed to emerge from the depths of the caves, pockets full of wealth left untouched for years, returning to the wagon and filling the chest full of vases of wine glasses galore as they set off further into the forest, their crystal about to explode after approximately 4 seconds of continued use. The wagon grinds to a stop, the crystal completely drained. But alas, poor pilgrims, not all is lost. As 2 of them push the wagon further, they hear this melody.
What is that melody?
This is the merchant, and he stands as the second constant that I spoke about briefly earlier. Standing is basically the only friendly face that you will ever see in these seemingly never-ending wastes, even being willing to lend you money and letting you get into debt with him if you're unable to afford anything of import. The merchant stands as someone you can rely on to always be there for you after the traumatic experiences that await all pilgrims in the depths of depravity that are the dungeons they are forced to explore. This is represented in the game by always coming after a dungeon, with the gameplay loop essentially being as so. Go to the dungeon, explore, return to the wagons with goods or die, move on to the merchant, sell, and repeat. The merchant's camp is also where 2 unique gameplay features come into play, the first being the ability to revive dead compatriot pilgrims, by either dragging the body back to the wagon after they meet an untimely demise or having one of those conveniently located masks I mentioned earlier. You place either in the middle of these usefully located pentagrams. You can then get one particularly artistic pilgrim to draw the pentagram with the chalk, and voila, the fellow pilgrim is back in the land of the living. Do not ask any questions if they start speaking in reverse or if any mysterious markings appear on their skin. That's completely normal. The other unique feature of the camp that, in my opinion, sets the game apart from its contemporaries is this orb.
That's the orb.
This is the saving orb, and lets parties of pilgrims save progress that they will return to if they either all die, or if they exit and come back at another time. This is huge in my opinion from a longevity standpoint, as one of my main issues with games like Lethal Company was that I was never able to experience the endgame, mainly because of skill issues, but also because of the cyclical nature of the gameplay prevented me from gaining money fast enough to prevent this. This saving feature completely prevents anything like this, but also presents problems of its own, as the gameplay has to be engaging enough and maintain momentum throughout to ensure the game doesn't get stale, which I believe that Pilgrim, if not right now, easily has the potential to ensure doesn't happen, at least for a solid chunk of playtime. But alas, the safety of the merchant must be moved on from if we want to make more progress, so pilgrims sell their totally legally gotten gains, buy a crystal compass, and all bundle back onto their wagon to continue the pilgrimage. As our group rolls down the road, however, the road seemingly getting tighter and tighter, they notice something. Far behind them, there is a huge hulking figure, following just slowly enough to not be immediately noticed, but close enough that its presence is now obvious. They are being stalked by something. That is Billy, and he serves as one of the obstacles that now exist for pushing the wagon. Occasionally he gets curious enough to rush the wagon aggressively. You have until he reaches the back to either get far enough away that he cannot see you, or to get inside the wagon. as he hunches over and stares into the vehicle, breaking down your doors if you are foolish enough to close them. This continues until he seemingly bores, retreating back to his stalking position and maintaining distance. Billy here, alongside these other demons that need to be stared at whilst pushing on dire consequences have suffered, now stand as two obstacles that have to be managed on the journey in between, spicing up the otherwise potentially dull gameplay of moving between zones. I believe that I have laid a pretty comprehensive overview of the different gameplay mechanics that are demonstrated throughout the game of Pilgrim. However, these are merely my experiences of the game, and as much I almost certainly missed a lot of stuff, so if I did, make sure to let me know in the comments. Speaking of letting me know stuff, it's time for the obligatory shill. Did you know that the most effective way to gain engagement through subscribers and likes is through calls to action just like this? Yeah? Well, I mean, the amount the YouTubers do this, it's not surprising, but still. If you're enjoying it at all, please make sure to like and subscribe, as the engagement this provides helps channels like mine immensely. Thanks for watching regardless, and let's get back to the video. Whilst the gameplay is the undeniable primary aspect as to why anyone has enjoyed any game ever, I believe that Pilgrim's atmosphere and unspoken lore also added significant levels to my enjoyment of the experience. The world in which the game takes place is one of mystery, similar to games like Lethal Company as I mentioned before, but also invokes certain similar feelings to games like Darkest Dungeon or even Darkwood to a certain extent, games that I thoroughly enjoy, both more for lore reasons than gameplay, especially with Darkwood. I suck at it. But the sense of atmosphere bleeds into every section of the game, from the abandoned towns and dungeons, linking into this theme of there being an old world that's alluded to both by the seemingly more advanced technology present on the wagon, backed up by the store page describing the wagon as one of the village's last remaining remnants of the old world, confirming that the world that exists in present-day Pilgrim exists as a world that is past its peak, presumably the old world succumbing to the horrors that infest the various ruins that we can find in-game. This begs the question as to what exactly happened to the old world. If they had been as affluent as the ruins would suggest, being able to build large-scale projects like towns and massive underground buildings, alongside even bigger projects like the massive walls that we pass through, still erected and still being used to this day, the cataclysm that brought this old world to its knees must have been significantly ruinous. I do have a working theory that I would like to posit. I believe that, based on basically no evidence, that the crystals themselves brought the end of the old world, in Pilgrim's world. I believe this as the crystals clearly stood as a power source in the old world's form of civilization, evidenced by a wagon, but also the fact that they can be found within dungeons, seemingly acting as power sources in those statues. I posit that these crystals either summoned or beckoned or somehow attracted the monsters infesting the ruins, and it is that which brought down the old world, the very thing that seemed to propel human development, causing its downfall. It's ironic, and I believe that's why it's true, as the folly of humanity being itself is often a theme found in other dark fantasy, like Darkwood and Darkest Dungeon as mentioned earlier. But, spoiler alert, for example, in Darkwood, the entire story happened as humans tried to mess with something they shouldn't have, a theme that seems to be mirrored in Pilgrims. However, whilst all this theory crafting is very fun, what relevance does it hold for why I enjoyed the game and how the atmosphere and story is created? Well, to begin, I came up with that theory whilst I was playing, using context clues and how the game felt to me to manufacture something that felt accurate to the setting. To me, the lore and the gameplay are, at least in a good game, tightly wrapped together, so much so that if you have the grasp of one side, you should easily be able to grasp the other. This might sound like a reach, but imagine it in a game like Fallout New Vegas. For me at least, say the dialogue system, to properly use it to its fullest through skill checks, an understanding of the setting of Fallout, that is in Apocalypse, that is in Nevada, has to be reached. Or maybe you just click the button that has the numbers, I don't know, maybe it's just me. Overall, both Pilgrim's lore and its atmospheres are both tightly interwoven with how the game is presented, and is easily one of the reasons that it sucked me in so much. But I believe there is still one reason left that describes why I most enjoyed the game when I first played it. That of course being... This may be a shorter section, but I think the primary reason as to why I had so much fun with the game was the fact that it can be played with friends. If I instead was forced to play it alone, I think that the early access nature of the gameplay, with the bugging of views, the janky running animations, and the sometimes buggy audio, would have severely detracted from the experience. However, playing with friends instead made these elements a positive to the experience, adding fun jank in the same vein of games like Totally Accurate Battle Simulator, or, like mentioned before earlier, Content Warning, making the experience even more memorable. Considering the fact that Pilgrims is posited as a co-op horror, despite the fact that it does say they can be played alone, which, I mean, is possible. I mean, it's even possible in like games like Lethal Company, but I just wouldn't recommend it. I believe that Pilgrims hit the aims of a co-op horror perfectly, to be funny. I may be shamelessly stealing this idea from a Veilfisk video essay, banging YouTube, you should go watch him if you don't, but I believe, like he does, that it doesn't overly matter on the horror elements or even the atmosphere elements of the game's designed like this. If it's funny, all can be excused, and I believe that above all, this game is both terrifying and hilarious at the same time. It's just great. Overall, this game is amazing, and honestly, for $6.69, it's nice. It's actually a steal for how much gameplay it provides, so if this video has made it seem appealing, even a little, please go play it. I'm fairly certain even most potatoes could run this game without breaking too much of a sweat, so if you can gather even like 2 other friends to play it with you, you'll have an amazing time. Even if the game only gives you like 2 hours of fun, I still think that's easily more than worth it. In conclusion, there isn't much more I can say that I haven't already, but basically this game offers amazing value for what it is. The atmosphere and gameplay are on point, and if you want a solid co-op horror game to play with your friends to replace the likes of Lethal Company, then this game is perfect for that. If you don't want to play it, then I don't know what to tell you, man. It's Medieval Peasant Simulator, bro. Just go get it. Also, the Merchant's theme absolutely slaps. I'm tired of pretending it doesn't. That shit goes goes hard, bro. Anyway, I think I've rambled on for long enough for your time now, but if the game looks good to you, go get it. That is all. Just remember, though, if your friend ever asks you to explore a random abandoned tomb with you, there's probably valuables down there, so you should go with him. You never know what you might find. And that was that. I hope you enjoyed watching me ramble about something I enjoyed yet again, and seriously, if the game does look interesting, go check it out. But also on the same line of logic, if you enjoyed this video at any point, please consider liking and even subscribing, as the engagement would be amazing for growth, as I do want to try and do this full time. But if not, thanks for watching regardless, and I'm going to keep grinding away anyway. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.